2023 promises to be a great year for heavy metal.
Exactly.
So without further ado, let's take a look at least some of the most anticipated metal albums of the year, both the ones which were already confirmed by the bands and the ones which are just being rumored of. Here you go. In just over a week, the death metal heavyweights Obituary are set to release their 11th studio album titled Dying of Everything, their first studio output in 6 years, marking the end of the longest gap between the releases, not counting the time of their breakup. I think that most will agree with me that, despite being around for almost 40 years now, Obituary have never actually lost that primal aggression, and actually is one of those bands that, despite anything, kind of remains true to its original sound. So here's the thing, if you are a fan of the post-2000s Obituary music, I have zero doubt that you will absolutely love this record. Something I cannot really say about the album, which will be released just a couple of weeks after that. Alright, so here's the thing, up until Come Clarity, which I think was released around 2006 or so, I actually was a very devoted In Flames fan. And don't get me wrong, I still have enormous respect for everything the band has put out since then, and the way they were able to branch out and push their own boundaries. But the truth is, last year when I heard the release by the newcomers of the melodic death metal scene, the Halo Effect, which, in case you missed that, consists of some of the guys who actually found the genre, including some of the ex-In Flames members as well, and who, by the way, might release their sophomore record this year as well, I thought to myself, well, this is the sound of the genre I fell in love with back in the day. It actually sounds like In Flames I discovered back in the late 90s. Damn, I wish those guys would do something like that. Only till I waited a couple of weeks to find out that those guys will do something like that. Yeah, 3 singles down the road, I'm cautiously optimistic about this record, and by the way, Anders Freden, the band's frontman, hopefully will be our guest on the show in just a couple of weeks, so if you guys want to ask him anything about Foregone or anything else In Flames related, I'll be more than happy to do that, so please do not hesitate to leave your questions in the comments, and of course, do not miss the interview on the channel in, a couple of weeks. For months, so many of you suggested in the comments that since I am a fan of traditional heavy metal, then I should definitely check out this band Lovebites, who are keeping the heavy metal fire burning and, just ready to grab the torch and become the next great heavy metal band around the world. And so you know what? I finally did! And it looks like I did that just in time for the release of their 4th studio album, Judgment Day, which will be out in February of this year. By the way guys, even though Lovebites sounds absolutely fantastic, I honestly do not really understand why it's been compared to Iron Maiden and Judas Priest so much, as for me they mostly represent the revival of this classic power metal sound, which of course is still great and long overdue, but in my opinion they are more comparable to bands like Halloween and Blind Guardian. But what about you? What do you guys think? Please let us know in the comments. By the way, this album will be released exactly a year after the biggest and the most devastating war in 70 years has started in the middle of Europe. So guys, just a reminder that the war in Ukraine is still going on and there are people dying here every day, so please continue supporting my country in any way you possibly can. Fast forward a month, because I don't think that there's anything that excites me personally that has been announced for March yet. Although we do know that the debut album by the band Elegant Weapons, which of course will consist of Richie Faulkner and Scott Travis of Judas Priest, Rex Brown of Pantera, and Ronnie Romero on vocals, has been confirmed for some time during the spring. So of course I'm very much excited to see what those guys will put out. But out of the ones which we know for sure about, in the beginning of April, German metal sensation Powerwolf will put out their new studio record, Interludium, which will feature 6 brand new tracks and 2 of the tracks which we already have heard this year. Overall, I gotta say that it kinda amazes me how by blending this pop music catchiness and traditional heavy metal, this band was able to gain such an enormous die-hard following around Europe and now are branching out in the United States and, elsewhere around the world. And even though I personally cannot really call myself a fan of Powerwolf, I think they're doing an amazing job by sticking to those gimmicks and to that sound that they have developed throughout the years, which of course just puts them on a map of being, one of the most exciting metal acts of today. And now we're of course coming to the most anticipated metal release of the year, at least out of the ones which were confirmed so far, hence why I have this record back there. The album 72 Seasons by this little and up-and-coming band, Metallica. I know there has been a fair share of criticism of the band's first single, Lux Eterna, and I even understand where it's coming from, to be honest with you. But being a fan of this traditional new wave of British heavy metal and speed metal, hearing the band paying homage to their own roots has been just, music to my ears. And the only question for me remains is how many fillers will Metallica include on this record? Because the truth is that Metallica is one of those bands who is able to masterfully blend jams in between the most forgettable songs and still make the album very much enjoyable without, giving their best to it, honestly. And the thing is, we of course all understand and do not expect them to release, Ride the Lightning #2, which, just for the note, is my personal favorite Metallica album. Yet still, if Lars and James will not settle for mediocrity and give their best to bring to the table the best possible version of themselves as of 2023, I have absolutely zero doubts that 72 Seasons will be just an all-round kick-ass record. But I guess we'll have to wait a couple of months to find out. So I think this is about it for the albums which have been confirmed so far. If I miss any, please let me know in the comments. But it looks like now we've finally reached my favorite part, the part of speculations.
Alright, here's an opportunity to be creative.
So it looks like if even half of the albums which are just rumored to be released will see the light of the day in 2023, this year just once again will be great for heavy metal.
Yes, it's true.
Around a year and a half ago, when I had a pleasure of welcoming Frank Ballo of Anthrax on the show, he already told me that the new Anthrax album is shaping out to be freaking amazing, and so it looks like 2023 will finally be the year when it will be actually released, which makes me personally absolutely excited because I'm really eager to see what those guys still have in stock for us. And the same of course goes for other thrash metal bands, including Testament, which are set to release their new record with Dave Lombardo behind the kit, and which, according to Eric Peterson, will be a much faster release, which I personally think is freaking amazing, as well as the new albums by Exodus and Overkill, who both promise to release new material this year.
I love it!
Avenged Sevenfold's long overdue follow-up to the 2016's The Stage has already been confirmed to be released in 2023, and even though I personally cannot really call myself a fan of this band, just the whole idea that it took the guys 7 years to write this brand new material, and it actually is the longest the band has ever taken to write new album, just really makes me wondering what is there and where will the band actually take their sound on their new album. But the truth is that the most anticipated unconfirmed releases of 2023, and once again by me, not overall, but will be the ones by the artists who've been releasing music for longer than I've been around.
It cannot be.
Just a couple of days ago, the legendary Tony Iommi confirmed that he is working on brand new material, which hopefully will be released this year. And the truth is, I'm very curious to find out what does Tony has in stock for us now that he has no obligations from Black Sabbath whatsoever, and he doesn't have to prove anything to anyone. Although that's been the case for many years, of course, now. But the fact that the songs which Tony Iommi has released together with Ozzy Osbourne on his latest studio album, Patient #9, are the ones which are considered by many the strongest ones on this record, just once again shows that even today, in 2023, the grandfather of heavy metal has a lot to offer. And the same of course goes for the upcoming release by the metal queen herself, Doro, who is getting ready to release her 18th studio output. And that's only counting solo albums and not the ones she released with Warlock. And let's cut the crap and be honest here, new material by Doro is always something to be looking forward to. But the album which I'm the most excited about is a rather surprising one. The one by Judas Priest. And the truth is that me being a huge Judas Priest fan is of course not the only reason why I personally am so excited about it. We know for sure that this album has been in the making for quite some time now, and that in fact Judas Priest has enough material for at least 3 records, and thus given the metal community's amazing response to their latest studio output, Firepower, because let's be honest here, there are not many bands who are able to release such material 48 years after its formation, but the band actually has a lot to choose from and will do everything they can to put out the best possible record in their hopes to top Firepower's success, especially given all of the amazing things which happened to the band in the last couple of years. And the coolest thing about it is there actually is nothing to speculate about, since as I always say, Judas Priest is one of those bands who never releases two of the same albums one after another. And I'm actually 100% sure that this time will be exactly the same, and we'll get something brand new by one of the greatest heavy metal bands of all time. And although in reality there is not actually much we can say about the band's upcoming record right now, I promise you can rest assured that when there will be something, you will be the very first ones to find out.
Ready to fight with no surrender.
But anyways, which are your personal most anticipated albums of 2023? Which ones did I miss and which ones are you absolutely not excited about? Please let me know in the comments. I'm really curious to find out. As always, thank you so much for watching, guys. If this is your first time on the Metal Pilgrim channel, please do not hesitate to subscribe, and we will prevail. Slava Ukraini!